apology, and some tasty tidbits. The Street Fighter episode has had some disasters befall it that may not be salvageable. If it can be released, it will be, but I didn't want to put nothing on the feed for April. So instead, I bring you this. A taste of what you get if you're a Hard Choices patron. This is some premium weirdness that you can only get if you pony up less than $2 a month. I want to give you some of the weirdest stuff. So here's Weird Choices Cutlery with Annie Craton and Soft Choices, X-Men villains as RPG table mates with Dan Mulcairn to enjoy. Also, I have Dan Mulcairn with me, who's going to be doing bad choices with me in a few days. Dan, how are you feeling about this?
Well, I'm hoping that I learned my lesson from the last bad choices that we did, in which I got literally blackout drunk towards the end of it. I'm going to be pulling back a little bit because I feel as though, given the subject matter at hand, I'm going to need all of my wits about me, or at least maybe 70% of my wits about me in order to navigate this particular minefield you've set in front of me.
I cannot imagine what it would be like to have only hazy bits of like yourself saying things about Hanna-Barbera characters as you're like, I don't remember what happened last night. I got so drunk, babe. And then you're like, well, oh shit, I said things.
Guess what, man? We're going to find out on April 20th because that's when we're recording and streaming Bad Choices Hanna-Barbera. That's
fucking right. Bad Choices Hanna-Barbera, the intoxicated live show for patrons only, is headed your way. Dan is going to be one of the victims / perpetrators of this crime against decency. Dan, I have to write a sexy fanfic for this.
You have to.
I have to. The law says, talking about Zorak from Space Ghost and Miss Bellum from Powerpuff Girls in the horniest clinch imaginable. Maybe not as, well, no, I think it's probably going to be hornier than the thing I wrote about Elaine Bennis and Dr. Doom. I got to ask you, top 3 things you think Zorak's cum might taste like. This is a brainstorming sesh. What do you think? Right.
Okay. Top 3 things that Zorak's cum could taste like. Okay, I'm going to say this is not in any ascending or descending order. This is just as these things are occurring to me. Okay, number 1, Diet Mountain Dew.
Ooh.
And I know what you're asking. Is it carbonated? Yes. Yes. It is carbonated.
I mean, like the most refreshing douche? I don't know, man.
We'll have to ask Miss Bellum post fanfic. Okay, number 2, coconut scented sunscreen.
Well, okay. Does it have the weird texture?
Yes, I'm going to say it does. It has the texture and scent and taste of coconut scented sunscreen.
Oof.
And also maybe the UV blocking properties. I guess you're really, really going to have to go to work if you want, sufficient coverage. Okay, number 3. This one's a little more conceptual. His cum tastes like the emotional journey that you go on when you touch your tongue to a 9-volt battery.
Whoa.
So it's not like, you taste his cum and you get like shocked, but you experience the emotions of that whole experience.
And that is a weird experience.
Yeah? I mean, you're sucking off a mantis, man, so I think that seems only appropriate.
This is unfucking believable. Thank you.
I must add, having been working on my list for this episode, that is among perhaps the more normal takes that will be voiced on that episode on April 20th, because there are some weird characters, and looking into this particular boner, I'm digging up some weird stuff. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, baby, it's going to get so much fucking weirder. On Saturday, April 20th at 5 p.m. Pacific. And do you know, people, who got to choose those characters, Zorak and Miss Bellum, and help craft this nightmare? The patrons! That is the kind of nasty joy you get if you become patron of Hard Choices. Give me your money and help me make the world a filthy, sexy place. Patreon.com/hardchoices, baby. Now, to talk about the list of characters we're going to be ranking for bad choices. And this is a bit of a lightning round style, Dan Mulcairn. You have had no time to prepare. I did give you a little bit of time to mull over cum thoughts.
Yes.
This time, just looking at the list of characters, I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
The biggest wow boobs or wow dick on the list?
Ooh, okay. Biggest wow boobs or wow dick? I will say I'm partway done making my list, which also means that I'm partway done into looking into some of these characters.
Yes.
And a couple of these characters are very obscure, so I don't actually know that much about them.
But that's okay.
So I'm just going to kind of shoot from the hip. I'm going to shoot my shot and just going to say Inch High. Inch High from Inch High Private Eye is the biggest wow boob / wow dick.
Wow. I mean, ironic, it being only an inch high. I mean, is it ironic? I don't know.
I don't think it's ironic. I think it's appropriate.
You know what? That's beautiful. Good for him.
Yeah.
Dan, who's the worst pillow talker?
Ooh,
really
the worst
ruins
pillow talk.
Ruins the fucking mood.
You know, given the range of voices that people were allowed to do over the course of Hanna-Barbera cartoons, that is a wide tapestry to draw from. I'm gonna say Muttley is probably the worst pillow talker, just because he doesn't contribute anything, and it's just like anytime you do the slightest verbal misstep, he just laughs at you.
Wow, fuck. Brutal.
Which, I mean, you know, if you're into a humiliation, I guess, you know, sign up for sexy time with Muttley.
Yeah, fuck. You're like, man, the good times don't end. Like, it's all humiliation. What about most likely to catch post-fuck feelings?
Oh, boy. Okay. Okay. I think this might be a controversial one. I think it's Dr. Blight from Captain Planet.
Whoa! Wow. That may be character assassination. We will see how this goes.
Yes, we will. I have a reasoning for that because I just wrote up my take on her today.
Okay. I mean, maybe somebody's expressing some like wishful thoughts about Meg Ryan, but understandable.
Look, I'm only human. You know, I can't claim to have perfect objectivity on this, but just from what I know about her, what I know about the other characters on the list, that's where I'm putting her.
Wow. Loudest screamer on the list?
Ooh, loudest screamer. Okay, I'm going to say Dick Dastardly is probably the loudest screamer.
That is...
just he's kind of a wannabe supervillain, and I think he's prone to and used to making declarations, and so I think his volume knob in general is just kind of stuck on maximum.
Okay.
I will say loudest screamer and also longest, most verbose screamer. Like, you get like a paragraph with like multiple sentences.
There's a semicolon in there.
Yeah,
you're like,
for sure.
Jesus Christ. Most likely to have a mattress on the floor.
Oh, definitely Jabberjaw. Like,
wow.
I don't even think I need to. I didn't have to think about that for 1 second. Jabberjaw, 100% mattress on the floor.
Is it just because he's a drummer? Is that what this is about?
Ooh, maybe. That might be. I don't know. He just like.
He just says this man doesn't know how to have a bed frame.
Yeah, because that's the question, right? It's like, when you say, is the mattress on the floor, it's, does this person have a bed frame? And it's like, it's more like, why would Jabberjaw have a bed frame? That doesn't...
It's just,
nothing about that mental image makes sense to me.
Okay, would it be weirder then if Jabberjaw had like an elaborate 4-poster bed with like the little chiffon curtains and shit?
That would be the weirdest thing. Like if Jabberjaw invited me back to his place and he showed me into his bedroom and that was what I saw, I'd be like, okay, whose house is this that you are squatting in / have stolen? And are they going to come home before we finish?
Oh my God. All right, finally. Most likely to give you fleas, lice, or something worse.
Oh boy.
Yeah, there's some options.
I mean, I feel limited by only being able to pick one.
Well, I said most likely. This is not... We're not ruling anybody out.
Okay. At the risk of showing my hand slightly for some of my takes on Saturday.
Well, good news is I'll be drunk, so I'll forget.
Okay, good. I'm going to say Yogi Bear.
Mm-hmm.
He lives outdoors.
Yes, he does.
And I read him as engaging in a lot of activities that you wouldn't expect from a bear.
That's a wide swathe.
Sure. And ones that might cause him to acquire certain things that can then be passed on to sexual partners.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have discovered things about Yogi Bear and me and the interaction thereof that I did not conceive of before. And that, frankly, I'm not sure the world is prepared to hear, but hear it they will.
What are you drinking for this, anyway?
Ooh, I don't know. The last couple of times that we've done bad choices...
Full bottles of wine?
Well, that was the last time. I'm not going to... Boy, I hope I don't drink another whole bottle of wine for this time.
I mean, how could you prevent such a thing?
I don't know who forced me to drink a whole bottle of wine last time, but they're a real asshole. I will be getting some wine. The first bad choices we did, I got House of the Dragon branded wine.
Yeah,
the second time I got
awful.
I got some it was like wine that was branded with like some kind of Pride stuff, because I think we were doing that episode like around Pride Month, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go out. I'll find some kind of wine that is hopefully trashy and either weirdly appropriate or deeply ill-informed. And then I'll probably also have some hard liquor on the side for when we need to do shots.
Wine, mom, wine. Wine, mom, wine. Yes!
Yeah, if I can find some, I'll definitely pick some up.
Fuck yes. All right, gorgeous. Yeah. Thank you for this.
Yeah.
Look, everybody, this is how we're talking about this shit when we are stone cold sober. Imagine how this is going to sound after I'm 3 Cointreau and sodas deep. You are in for the ride of your fucking life. And you can get into bad choices for the low, low price of $4.20. And it's happening on 4/20, just to remind you, at 5 p.m. Pacific on Crowdcast.
And in case you missed it the first time Bob said it, it's not just us. We have One Shot's own James D'Amato.
Yeah, we
and I will
do.
fight you's own Annie Craton. Like, this is a reunion of the Spider-Man episode, but with alcohol and with us talking about Hong Kong Phooey. So
yeah!
You're losing money if you don't spend it on listening to this episode, on watching us become unhinged.
On watching us slowly lose touch with reality and start to move between the worlds of here and whatever the fuck was happening in the offices of Hanna-Barbera in the 1970s. You think they weren't talking about this shit? Fuck yeah, they were. All right, the link to register is below, and the link to join the Patreon is listed below also. Guess what? What else do you get if you join? Everyone who is coming to Bad Choices is going to get a sex bingo card, so they can see if they get a bingo during the episode. Wow Boobs is going to be on there. Peepums is going to be on there. Sad Fuck is going to be on. Floor Mattress. Obviously Floor Mattress is going to be on there. What if you can't come to the show, though? What if you're working on 420? What if you just hate 420 and try to sleep through the whole day? Buddy, it's going to be available for you to watch after, and it's also going to be available as a podcast that you can listen to while you drive. Caveat, we truly do not advise that you listen to Hard Choices while driving. It's genuinely possibly hazardous to your health. I've heard some stories.
Very difficult to manipulate the steering wheel when you have a giant boner, so, you know.
You have to let your boner drive. And that's, look, most state governments do not allow that. If you were waiting for a sign to become a patron of Hard Choices and come to Bad Choices, our drunk live show to watch James D'Amato, Annie Craton, Dan Mulcairn, and myself admit things about Jabberjaw, much like this floor mattress situation, that are probably going to ruin any future job prospects, then this is it. Click below to become patron at the $4.20 level and get every delicious second of Bad Choices. Do you know what else happens if you come to bad choices? You, the person who is coming to bad choices, get to submit your questions for us to answer during Let's Unpack That. You are the one who decides what we have to answer for. Look, during Looney Tunes, you all asked Chris Newton questions about pig murder and asked me about the Geneva Conventions. So who knows what the fuck is going to happen in this one? You're the one who gets to decide. So click below to become a patron and make sure you register for bad choices. Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Yogi Bear and Ranger Smith have ever fucked?
I don't think that that's the pertinent question. I think the question is like, what positions have they yet to try? Like, what areas of Jellystone National Park have they yet to defile?
Are you saying that what we see I was about to call it an anime. That would be a very different show. Yogi
just
Bear
a real bishy looking Yogi Bear.
Yeah, with the little like blushy cheeks. Do you think like that what we see in the cartoon is just foreplay? Like that's all that we experience in the cartoon.
So yeah, there's the TV show 24. It takes place like in real time essentially, and so therefore like a lot of people who watch the show are like, wait, so when does Jack Bauer use the bathroom? And they assume that it's like, during commercial breaks or something like that. He just like nuts. He just like speed poops and then gets back into the action of like chasing terrorists or whatever. And I feel like with Yogi Bear, it's that, but with sex between Yogi and Ranger Smith, where it's like the second the camera is off them, they're just on top of each other.
Wow. Dan Mulcairn here, bringing things to light that the people at Hanna-Barbera had long since thought,
that's right,
papered over by the weight of history. But not so. We're here to dig out the truths. Thank you so much for listening to Hard Choices. Enjoy this taste of the magic of being a patron, and be sure to subscribe at patreon.com/hardchoices to get more of it. See you on 420, baby. Hello and welcome to Weird Choices, the show where we rank non-human, non-animal objects, places, and concepts according to the metrics dictated by our hearts or loins, depending on the episode. This is no frills, all weirds. If a podcast was made of shower thoughts and Tumblr shitposts, this would be that podcast. Today, if this cutlery was a person, how good would the sex be and what would it be like? Joining me on this journey off the edge of the fucking map is Annie Craton. Annie, thank you for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. This was such a weird question, and I am happy to answer it in more thoroughness than it maybe deserves.
And before we get to this list, I just wanted to ask you, how did you approach making your rankings?
So, I tried to do something where I tried to think of each of these items on our list as something that was kind of like a gajinka, which is, the gajinka concept of basically making an anthropomorphized version of, an inanimate object. Like, let me make this PlayStation 3 into a sexy waif. I don't think I wanted to go full gajinka. I wanted to still take into account the design choices made with these various bits of cutlery. So okay. I kind of went into sort of a weird quasi space in this.
Ooh.
With maybe they're kind of a person, but maybe also it's important to think about the tines on these forks. What vibe do these give off?
I went at it kind of I think this bespeaks my literary background, is I was like, okay, if this was fucking 19th century British novel or whatever, and fucking Evelyn Waugh, that's not the right time period, but was like, oh, this person is a real salad fork, I would be like, oh, okay. So that's what they would be like. And so I went that route, which I don't know what kind of fucking results that will yield. Like, I don't even know how to approach what we've done here. But I think the only way to do it is just to stick our hand in there and see what comes out.
Yeah, let's stick our hand in the drawer full of knives and forks. I think it'll go real well. We'll remain completely unscathed.
And some of those spoons too.
Some of those spoons, Jesus.
All right, now, before we get onto the list itself, we did have one honorable mention that we had discussed over Twitter. And I just wanted to give just cursory acknowledgement to the oyster fork. I wanted to ask if you had any words you wanted to say in, celebration of this brave fork out here doing, I don't know whose work, but somebody's.
I mean, we kind of went back and forth on DMs about the oyster fork and its merits. And
yes.
I feel like my thing about the oyster fork is that it is such a unitasker in that it would be absolute dog shit at everything that is not shucking oysters. And I mean, it'll shuck your oyster. It'll shuck your oyster hard. It will be ruthlessly efficient at shucking your oyster, but it'll be the worst at literally anything else. Like, the oyster fork takes its mouth out from between your legs, and it's useless.
Well, all right. Okay, oyster fork. You have earned your place in the cutlery drawer, I think. I just don't eat enough oysters. I fear them. They're weird. Ocean snot.
They have an odd mouthfeel. Yeah.
They do. I was raised in a desert state. Seafood is creepy to me.
I'll go in for the mussels, mostly because mussels are largely a vehicle for simmered wine and butter and garlic.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
but the oyster is too powerful. It's like 3 mussels together, and I can't.
I tried to eat one once at a like an all-you-could-eat Chinese buffet, and that was a terrible idea. I did not get sick or anything because these were just all left out.
I live in the Seattle area right now, but I am a Hoosier by birth. I am from the corn state of Indiana, which you will notice is not near any places where oysters naturally occur.
It's hard to grow them out in the plains.
Not conducive.
Now, we worked together and assembled a list of 7 cutleries. And now we're going to let you know what these 7 cutleries we will be ranking are. Number 1, carving fork. A fork used in carving meat, commonly having 2 long tines. This is the stabby lad, who you use to hold a pot roast in place while you carve.
Number 2 is the nutcracker. You can hear that space there. This is the small metal device used for cracking nuts or for cracking open crab and lobster shell. We're talking the no shit kind, not the one shaped like Clara's ballet boyfriend.
Number 3, pastry fork. A diminutive fork designed for eating cakes and pastries off of a plate without the use of a knife. 2 of the tines are bridged together into a thicker, flatter tine that serves as a cutting edge and making the cake-to-mouth experience that much more seamless.
Number 4 is the marrow spoon. A long, thin spoon hailing from the 1600s with a rounded spoon at one end and a narrow scoop at the other end, for when you want to get marrow out of a bone while being an absolute richo about it.
Number 5, the ice cream fork. A proto-spork from the Victorian era, specifically for eating ice cream. It looks classier than it sounds. Not that much classier, but classier.
Not that much classier. Number 6 is the tomato knife, a small serrated kitchen knife for cutting, you guessed it, tomatoes. The serrated edge allows the knife to penetrate the tomato skin quickly and with a minimum of pressure without crushing the flesh.
Number 7, grapefruit spoon. AKA the danger spoon. Similar to a teaspoon, but tapers to a sharp edge, or often serrations, designed to help you free citrus from the rind. And to cut your mouth if you're too lazy to do dishes and dare to eat your cereal with it.
Oh, Bob. Oh, no.
I live a dangerous lifestyle. We are going to jump straight into the median for this episode, and that is number 4. Annie, who is your number 4 on this nightmare list?
My number 4 is the tomato knife, because I feel like the tomato knife, it's standard, it does its job. The 2 prongs also make it, just inventive enough to have, like, just a saucy little good time. It's mostly vanilla. You can use it as a regular knife otherwise. It's got some slight kinks to it. I feel like this is your perfectly average sexual time as far as the cutlery is concerned. This is your standby boy, who will sometimes surprise you with a couple of, like, new fun kinks.
Aww. All right, my number 4, big feels out of fucking nowhere.
Oh shit.
I know! It's the Nutcracker. This is so goddamn weird. It's the Bob Vila fuck. I can't fucking believe I'm putting that phrase out into the world. But okay. Hear me out.
Okay. The Bob Vila fuck.
So at first I was like, no, a Nutcracker, this is fucking nothing. This doesn't matter. But then I realized that this person is open to going the extra mile and figuring out how to deliver, like, every fucking molecule of pleasure to you. Like, this is a thing that is designed to help you get more. So, like, this is a partner who would build sex furniture. They would, like, learn to make a macrame sex sling or something. The point is that they are all about giving you everything they possibly can, and they're this, like, ultimate service top of a fucking
I just feel like we keep realizing the sentences that we're saying out loud.
It is like being drunk and high at the same time and constantly realizing it every new moment I am awakened to it. All right, who is your number 5?
My number 5 was the ice cream fork. And, the more I think about it, the more I feel like the ice cream fork is probably my big feels. Because, look, this is a spork. It's a spork. The spork is the tool of the everyman. It is the people's flatware. The ice cream fork is its predecessor. It's invented only for the sake of making table more fancy and more overwrought. I hate that. The ice cream fork would, like, look, I'm not saying a spork would be great at sex, but a spork would give you a perfectly serviceable time. You would have adequate sex, and the spork knows that. The spork does not have any feelings of grandiosity. The spork is your good lay. I mean, if we were talking sporks on this list, spork would have been my number 4. But the ice cream fork is an asshole with an overinflated ego and a sense of superiority. Like, again, it's got filigree on it. It's a spork with filigree. Come the fuck on. The ice cream fork would, like, give you the exact same, like, middle of the road sexual experience as the spork, but it would be really pretentious about it afterwards and, like, think that you should thank them for the opportunity.
Oh my god. Okay, so it's the ice cream fork is also my number 5, but I want to pass you my fanfic.
Hold on one sec. What's that, Hassan?
Well, after that, he would ghost you and give you the cold shoulder.
Oh! Because ice cream. Go. He would give you the cold shoulder afterwards because he's ice cream. Thanks, husband.
No, that's what marriage is for coming in and going, no, I have a pun. And then your partner has to listen to it, and that's what's in the vows.
It's right there. It's in the vows. They finally got honest and they replaced that whole weird, like, obedience shtick with, like, no, what this means is that you have to listen to your partner's terrible jokes.
Thank God they put that in there. So my number 5 is also the ice cream fork.
Excellent.
Peepums. Obviously, this is a fussy Peepums energy. Like, somebody who probably has a set of bed linens specifically for sex, which is weird, takes off the very minimum amount of clothes. And then there is also a weird power play element of manners, where if you make any noise, you have, quote, lost at sex somehow.
What?
And, like, that's fascinating, and it's not going to be good, but I am a moth to a fucking flame for whatever this is. Like, I want to join your secret club that you clearly have in this weird class that you're a part of.
Oh, it's definitely a gentleman's club. They all wear top hats and smoke cigars and discuss society.
Oh,
fuck this guy.
All right, who is your number 6?
My number 6 was the Nutcracker. And like, I'm approaching this as someone who spent a lot of time eating shellfish, like with like lobster and crab and stuff. People will write entire ballets of how great nutcrackers are, and then when you finally see them at the table, they're not even weird, fanciful dolls. They're just flimsy metal bastards who never quite work the way you want them to. And the thing is that the thing about the Nutcracker is that they're usually sold with these picks to actually like scoop out anything. And frankly, you end up spending more time with these guys, so it's like banging a dude who has these like 2 to 4 friends who are always around.
No.
And you know, honestly, you get along with them way more than you do the guy, but like you can't just break up with him and only date the pics. So like,
yeah,
if you're into like if you're into a dude with like a good social group and an occasional like 3 to 5-some, that's great. But like you've got this like dude who never fulfills his end of the deal, who you don't really like enjoy that much, bringing the rest of the energy down, and I think it's just disappointing.
All right, my number 6 is the carving fork.
Interesting.
Okay, I do think boyfriend material. Like,
sweater
wearing guy who is always there for big family events and cares about making sure that things go well. And I think there is a dark side here, though, and only you know about it. And it does make it even sexier that you have this like this wholesome side, but also like le dangerous. And so I'm not against this kind of, this is a weird sentence, but this edgy Mr. Rogers fuck. But I also don't know that I need the energy of sweater meets switchblade in my sex life.
That is such a different energy than how I was approaching this. That's so interesting.
All right, I'm very excited to see where you place the carving fork. All right, finally, bottom of the list, Annie, who is your number 7?
Grapefruit spoon.
Whoa. Okay.
Like, look, the grapefruit spoon has like all those serrated edges around it. The grapefruit spoon is a nasty bitch. Like, this is like ribbed for your pleasure, but the ribs are pointy. I feel like this is cutlery that is into some like real pain-based kinks, but like considering that they usually work with grapefruits, which aren't like good company to begin with, I feel like the grapefruit spoon would be like a really rough lover, but who is not really concerned with like how well you're enjoying the experience and how well you're doing and what your thresholds are. Like, might ignore a safe word or two. And like, I feel like the grapefruit spoon would also not be interested at all in any kind of aftercare.
Oh, wow. I mean,
I get some bad vibes from the grapefruit spoon.
I'm gonna go to fucking Bed Bath & Beyond and leave a very cryptic review after this. I'm gonna have my account banned. All right. My number 7 is the marrow spoon. The once in a lifetime unicorn fuck. And I don't think that you can recognize this person like just by looking around the world. But I think we've all experienced this person. And I think that they're a real oyster spoon. Like, they aren't good at everything, and they're probably useless at most things, but they can do that one thing incredibly fucking well. And it's life-changing. And it's not necessarily a fuck you ever go back to, but it is a fuck that you remember forever because it was the fuck where you used a goddamn marrow spoon. You're like, what? I can't believe this ever happened. In what situation in my life did I have cause for this? And yet. All right, and now our top 3. Annie, who is your number 3?
My number 3 is the pastry fork.
Okay.
Like, this is a sentence that I wrote, and now I'm going to say it out loud, and then I'm going to have to live with the ramifications of that. This is a sexy fork.
Go on.
This is a fork that has that extra thick tine that is made for the explicit purpose of tearing you asunder. This is the fork version of like a rabbit dildo, but if the rabbit dildo actually worked. Like,
yeah, if it was anything.
Exactly. If it was actually anything. Like, I have read enough monster fucker romance to know what it looks like when a dick is meant to stimulate your clit while it plows you. And I feel like that's what the pastry fork has going on.
Oh my god. I didn't think of the pastry fork as like a monster dick, but oh my god, you're changing my life.
I mean, it's kind of like a hybrid. It's got it's got some tines that serve different purposes. I mean, look, if you look at this thing, depending on how you angle it, you got your pussy, you got your clit, you got your butthole in there too. That's 3 tines.
Oh my fucking god.
That's one fork.
This fork is a hero.
This is the monster fucker fork, I think.
Pastry fork, the monster fucker fork.
We gotta get to Bob Q Silverware. We gotta do some rebranding.
Sidebar, there are a lot of pastry forks at my in-laws' house in Ireland, and I will never be able to eat any pastry there ever again.
You're welcome.
I've
never seen a pastry fork before. This is a fresh take.
My number 3 is the grapefruit spoon. Now, okay, I'm going to give you a different take on the grapefruit spoon. Okay, I
would love to hear it.
Faux tough guy. Because I know there's a temptation to focus on the serrated edges, but honestly, the part that I keep coming back to is spoon, because it's mostly a spoon. Mm-hmm. So this is a person with a paper-thin tough persona.
Oh.
And then underneath it all is just going to be this squishiness and this need to like take care of you, because it's like, no, honey, I'll deal with this difficult grapefruit. You don't have to. I'll deal with it. And then like really he's going, all right, I'll take care of you during sex. And then also in the next morning, he's like, did you take your multivitamin? I'm concerned. And so the tough guy part, though, I will say downsides, does occasionally wear sunglasses after dark. You're like, okay.
So he can't see. Obviously.
Clear. Yes. No, this all checks out. And your number 2.
So my number 2 was actually the marrow spoon.
Okay.
This might just be my biases speaking, because like whenever we will like cook up ham steaks, my husband will usually like fish out the marrow from like the bone in the middle, and like then I just get this tiny little hot piece of delicious marrow, and it's one of the best things in my life. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, like, this spoon is the tongue champion of the year. This spoon goes deeper and more thoroughly than anyone else, and they will thank you for the opportunity as they plunge your depths with their incredible power. Like, I just feel like this is the spoon. This is the lover that would give me the best cunnilingus I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh my god, they're like an Olympic champion.
Yeah, and I feel like you mentioned that they are similar to the oyster spoon in that the oyster fork in that regard, and I think I agree with that. However, I think the fact that the oyster fork will try to also be a fork at the same time, I think that is what sort of detracts. Whereas the marrow spoon just knows exactly what its strengths are. Also, sidebar, I'd like to congratulate myself for pronouncing that word correctly, because in my head, I always say caningulus. Like it's a vampire or something.
Caningulus the vampire.
Caningulus.
Oh my god. Anne Rice, get the fuck on that shit. All right, my number 2 is the tomato knife.
Interesting.
Okay, fuck. Like, okay, the precision. I feel like because this knife is designed to not like smoosh your tomato, but just to like precisely slice your tomato, you are going to get to the exact edge of what you can handle before you break, and it's going to be terrifying, but also really exhilarating. And it's the kind of fuck where you're like, God, I hope she never calls me again, but also fuck, I hope she calls me tomorrow, like, please call me. And you just live on that edge every time with her. And it's obviously I feel very strongly the tomato knife, she a lady.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
All right, and your number 1, the most fuckable piece of cutlery we chose to talk about, Annie.
Mine was the carving fork in a stunning like reversal.
Oh my god, tell me all about it.
So like, look, I appreciate a very intense power top, and I feel like that is the energy that the carving fork gives out. This is a fork that will pierce you and pin you down and never let you go until it's done with you.
Oh
like,
my god, it's so true.
And I mean, like, you know, ranking the carving fork by itself is almost unfair because, like, obviously the carving fork always comes with a knife. So sometimes the carving fork's got a buddy, and they're also like very intense. But like the knives can come and go, but it's the intensity and the power of the carving fork that dictates the entire experience. And like,
so true.
I don't even think about like the Thanksgiving aspect at all. This is just someone who will hold you in place, and I'm like, okay,
wow,
you keep going. You tell me when you're done. I know when I'm done. You tell me when you're done.
It is true that every time you reach into, you know, wherever you keep the assorted implements that are not your workaday implements for the kitchen, it is like you do feel a certain surge of power in holding a carving fork and going like, I have the stabbiest boy that's not a knife,
this
but
is
it
the
has
stabbiest
the
boy.
stabbies.
It only has 2 tines. They both do an incredible job. And this roast is going absolutely nowhere until I say so.
Just doming the fuck out of that pot roast.
I'll be the sub for that.
You know, you're winning me over here. I neglected the absolute top energy of the fucking carving fork. On the other end of the spectrum, my number 1, the pastry fork.
Go on.
The decadence. This, Annie, is an Oscar Wilde fork. This fork is all about making sure you don't even have to put your plate down. You can just hold it and shovel sugar directly into your fucking mouth. It's going to be sheets with a thread count so high that science doesn't even have a number for it yet. There will be a string quartet in the corner. There will be a fucking lube sommelier involved. I am all in on this. So all in on this fucking fork.
I do believe when we were making this list, you did warn me that you had some intense feelings about the pastry fork, and I can see why.
It's a fork for sugar. What a beautiful thing.
It scratches that decadence itch.
It does. Oh my god.
Just let them pamper you.
All right, and I want to take a brief moment to do a little bit of unpacking, but I think the thing that we really would like to do in this moment maybe is see which of our opinions has moved the most in response to one another's arguments about what these cutlery might be able to do. I will say the monster fucker angle of the pastry fork. I mean, the pastry fork is already my number 1, but I'm like, if there's a number higher than that, but I'm like...
Honestly, I feel like you have me completely rethinking the grapefruit spoon because the grapefruit spoon is at rock bottom for me, but God, I love it when they're secretly soft. I love it when they're grumpy, but secretly soft. And oh no.
It is very powerful. I have to say, you've really turned me around on the carving fork. I was thinking about it in such a Thanksgiving context and I mean, I can see the tough guy switchblade angle, but at the same time, I was thinking about it as well, it's got to be this family affair, but no, you're right. It's just you and that fucking pot roast, and I just stab that fucker. Just hold it in place.
Honestly, I almost feel bad now that tomato knife was my middle of the road because I think you make such compelling points about it being such a precise lover.
I fear the power of the tomato knife because I did a little bit of research. And one of the things they said was that it doesn't even matter if it becomes dull because it's not about that. It's about the serration. So it's the sharpness isn't what does it. It's just the serration. So it's you can leave it unsharpened and it will still fuck up your tomatoes exactly the way you wish.
Ooh. And just to be clear, because it seems like it takes different shapes, are we talking about a tomato knife, the kind with like the two prongs on the top, like sort of the two tips, or does that matter to you?
I like the two tips, but I was reading and the two tips are specifically so that way you don't have to have a separate like fork to move your tomatoes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It's like an all-inclusive package of a knife. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this is a knife that will get things done. And that is sort of terrifying in its power. Also, I don't like chopping up tomatoes at the best of times. And the idea that there's a knife that could do that for me with such ease is a little bit like, I'm scared of the knife now.
Yeah, no, tomatoes are terrible to chop up. They're all water.
Yeah, no.
They just all get mushy.
You can't put water in a little like organic bag and have it go well. It doesn't work like that.
It's a little capsule full of water makes a
you
great
also
sauce.
Not
though.
a fan. Yeah,
not a tomato,
I'm not
a big tomato person.
I want to like them, but every time I have some that's raw, and I'm like, no.
I just want
like
someone to come to my house and just bring me fresh fried green tomatoes, and that is how I will eat tomatoes if they're not in a sauce from now on. That'll just be my life.
I had forgotten that you can fry a tomato and
good fried green
tomatoes.
Oh.
Okay, dangerous cutlery boys. All of this aside, I think we've done the most we can to try and make sense of this experience. But before we leave, I just wanted to ask Annie, did we learn anything here today?
I learned I learned that I have some opinions about cutlery that I did not necessarily want to know. I learned dark secrets about myself.
Yeah.
And I also learned a lot about certain like cutlery implements that I have never seen before.
Yeah, I feel like I opened a like hidden closet door inside my soul, and it's just a dark, consuming like I don't know what's in there, but some kind of monster or something, and it's like, no, you have thoughts about the ice cream fork. They're like, okay, all right, yeah, I do, I guess, okay.
I feel like the problem is that when you go to school for any amount of time and you focus in English, you will gain the ability to form opinions about fucking anything if you have a deadline and like an expectation. And we've applied this dark skill to to fuckable silverware now. And we have discovered that we could probably do this to fuckable anything now. And
it's true. I
feel like we've unlocked some kind of mode that we weren't supposed to be able to touch. Like, I think we entered some kind of cheat code about the, like, we've unlocked the other, like, 80% of our brain.
That's all that's there. That's the only... People keep thinking that what you get when you unlock that is superpowers, but no, you can just be horny about cutlery.
No, it's just a weird little voice in your head that's like, what if the carving fork was a lever?
Annie, thank you so much for being willing to do this for whenever I came to you and was like, come on, we could do this. It'll work, I promise. I appreciate you saying, no, this is a good quest and we should go on it. Or at least it's a quest that's cursed and we should see what happens.
Thank you for inviting me along this grim path. And I am now forever changed, so there's that, I guess. This was such an experiment.
It truly was. All right, thank you. This has been Weird Choices, and I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day. And I hope that the next time you open your cutlery drawer that the feelings that you have are normal. That's what I hope for you.
We want that for you now because we can no longer have it. You're welcome.
Nah, it's gone. It's gone for us. All right, bye.
Look, everyone, sex can be great. And the process of figuring out how fictional characters fuck on both a descriptive and qualitative level isn't just fulfilling, it's arguably crucial to the functioning of human culture. But, and it pains me to say this, every once in a while, you have to deal with, shall we say, a refractory period. You're fresh out of lube, and DoorDash isn't going to arrive with refills for another 45 minutes. So, how do you pass the time? The answer, of course, is soft choices, the side project of hard choices. We're staring into the beating heart, not of horniness, but of wholesomeness. Aww. We'll take a group of fictional characters and, while they may indeed be deeply fuckable, we're judging them on a different, more mundane, and mostly arbitrarily chosen metric. So today we're going to take a look at 7 of the X-Men's greatest supervillains and ask, which one would be the best to have as part of a regular RPG group? I'm your host, Dan Mulcairn, and with me, as so often happens when the two of us hit upon a wonderfully terrible idea together, is Megan Bob.
It is me. Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you decided to make this idea possible. Thank you, Dan.
Well, thank you. We have conversations much in the vein of what I think we're about to have via various, text messaging services with startling regularity, I would say. So we're just sort of letting other people into what we were going to be doing anyway.
Yeah, this was definitely our weekend plan.
Yeah. So in the course of a normal Hard Choices episode, this would be when I'd throw it over to you, Bob, to define fuckability for us. But in this case, that of course is the furthest thing from our minds. I mean, as far as it ever gets from either of our minds, which,
I know,
so arms reach at most.
With increasing regularity, it is like, you're just going, it's right within arm's reach at all times.
We're leaving it within arm's reach, but we're turning away from it, keeping it in our peripheral vision, perhaps, but not addressing it directly. So today, we're looking at these 7 X-Men villains, and we're going to rank them based on their desirability as fellow players in a regular recurring RPG group. But other than that, the usual Hard Choices format will largely be the same. We're going to start from the median of each of our lists. We'll move down to the nadir, and then we'll go through our top 3, ending with our zeniths. Bob, anything you want to add or address before we get started?
We are going to do a weird thing, because I know already you're going, look at your feed, Bob. Look at your feed. What do you mean a weird thing? What is this? Okay, it's not that weird. I probably should have chosen a different word. Okay, we're going to do something slightly different because Dan's familiarity with X-Men villains is considerably deeper than my own. So I am going to give Dan the spiel on this particular character, and then Dan can tell me who he thinks that person is. Could be the X-Men villain I have chosen. Could not be. I tried my best.
I have complete faith in your Marvel wiki literacy, Bob.
Thank you.
I think you're going to do just fine.
Well, we'll see. But I will tell you who that is after you make your guess, of course. But that is how we're going to play it this time, as a sort of mini game, if you will.
Okay, so when we're ranking, you're just going to, when we get to a certain spot, you're just going to, explain broadly why you put a character in the spot without telling me which character it is. And I have to guess which one that is.
Bingo.
Is that generally what you're thinking? Okay.
Bingo, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, so I don't think doing a normal, full-on honorable mention segment here is necessarily warranted. I did want to say that I went through a lot of potential characters before I settled on this list that we're using. So you're not going to hear us talking about Sebastian Shaw, Lady Deathstrike, Omega Red, Arcade, most of the Brotherhood, Mojo, Dark Phoenix. There was one version of the list where I had Sentinels as one of the characters, but all of those kind of fell by the wayside along the way to leave us with this list of 7 that we actually have here.
Wait, okay, hold on. Wait,
yeah.
Unless you have more about this.
No. What's up?
Dan, I need to know, who's the dumbest X-Men villain? The one that you're just like, what is this?
The dumbest X-Men villain. I think it kind of depends on what you mean by dumb.
Just where it seems so phoned in and ridiculous, where they're like, oh, it's like jujitsu, and you're like, it's a vape cloud in a suit. What is this? This is nothing.
Right. I would say Just completely off the top of my head, I think probably Peepers might be the dumbest.
Peepers?
Yeah, he was recruited by Magneto to be part of the Brotherhood. He's basically like a weird-looking bald dude with like slightly pointed ears and enormous eyes.
Okay.
And basically like he just kind of had weird eye stuff that he could do. Like he had like he could do like, you know, telescopic or microscopic vision.
Okay.
You know, he had like kind of X-ray vision. But that was about it. Like he wasn't part of the Brotherhood for an extremely long period of time.
Yeah, what was their hiring process like? That they were like, okay, our applicant pool was really small this time, guys. We had to go with what we could get. We're giving this employment offer to Peepers.
Yeah, I mean, by that point, like, most of the Brotherhood had left. So Magneto was just like, he was really digging through the old, the old resume file and just kind of pulling out what he could. So that's my off-the-cuff pick. Listeners, if you have your pick for dumbest X-Men villain, I encourage you to write in. Let us know what you think. And I do want to say, at some point or another, all of the characters that are on today's list have been allies with or members of the X-Men. Ooh. So calling them villains full stop is not entirely accurate, but I tried to think of villains. I tried to think of characters as they are like typically portrayed in more mainstream depictions of the X-Men, like the live action movies or the animated series. And I figured, like, the 7 that I picked are put into antagonistic roles more often than not in those adaptations. So, with that, let's get into the 7 characters that we will be ranking.
Number 1, Magneto, a.k.a. Max Eisenhardt, a.k.a. Eric Magnus Lyncher, the mutant master of magnetism and the X-Men's oldest enemy. Magneto seeks to subjugate humanity beneath the heel of Homo Superior.
Number 2, Mystique, aka Raven Darkholm. Shapeshifting mutant assassin and spy, Mystique is ruthless and manipulative, willing to do whatever is necessary to look out for herself and those few she truly loves.
Number 3, Sabretooth, aka Victor Creed, animalistic archenemy of Wolverine. Sabretooth was a product of the same Weapon X program, but has no interest in keeping his savage side in check.
Number 4, Juggernaut, aka Kane Marco. Professor Xavier's shitty stepbrother who finds the mystical gem of Sidorak, gaining superhuman strength, invulnerability, and a chip on his shoulder in the process.
Number 5, Emma Frost, aka the White Queen. A telepath born into wealth, Emma was both one of the leaders of the villainous Hellfire Club and the headmaster of the Massachusetts Academy, a rival school to Xavier's.
Number 6, Apocalypse, aka En-Sabah Nur. One of the oldest mutants in the world, Apocalypse uses his millennia of knowledge and experience to bring about the end of mankind, ensuring that only the strongest survive.
And finally, number 7, Mr. Sinister, aka Nathaniel Essex. A Victorian-era scientist obsessed with the recently developed theory of evolution, Essex was transformed by Apocalypse into a 90s kid's idea of a cool vampire, and has manipulated mutant bloodlines in the background ever since.
And with that, let's get to ranking, starting with the median of our lists, the number 4. Bob, who did you have as your number 4?
This person is at number 4 because they are sort of playing a different game. I would describe them as a private mini-game gamer. So it spends a lot of time charming NPCs for fun and profit. Probably openly has wondered, do I really need the rest of the party? Would like the NPCs to do all the dirty work whenever possible. Also can cause drama at the table, maybe stringing along multiple members of your party in and out of game. Also less interested in playing the game at your table and is like building a private army of their own, and takes a lot of time at the table to say what their character is wearing. Like there are scene changes and you're like, no, my character is wearing something different right now.
Ooh, man.
That sounds like a lot of them, huh?
There's 2 characters on the list that I feel like are equally likely. I'm going to say I'm going to say Emma Frost.
There you go. Yay, I didn't do a bad job on this one. Thank you.
All right. Fantastic. Now you understand Emma Frost.
Okay,
so,
great.
yeah, well done on your first one.
I mean, Namor and I see the appeal.
I mean, you're not the only ones, but my number 4 is Apocalypse.
Oh, what?
So,
Okay.
So Bob, are you familiar with the term min-maxer?
I am familiar with that term. I am not a person who would partake of such a thing, but I am aware of its existence.
No, of course not. For those who aren't familiar with the term, min-maxing in an RPG refers to when you design your character, you don't do so wanting to make a realistic character or an interesting character. You're trying to make the best, most powerful character that you can. And that to me is Apocalypse. Like, he buys all of the supplemental books. He scours Reddit for build ideas. He comes to the table with a nightmarishly optimized character who is wildly unbalanced. This character, I will add, has no real backstory beyond whatever paper-thin justifications are needed for whatever unlikely combination of race, class, and stats he needs to just break the system. And Apocalypse might have even forgotten to give this guy a name by the time you sit down for your first session. I also, Bob, thought about what these characters would be like as GMs.
Oh, shit.
As opposed to players. And for this, I largely used their typical supervillain plots as a guide. Mm-hmm. And as a supervillain, Apocalypse has this kind of one grandiose plan that he keeps going to over and over again.
No.
It's just like turn 4 mutants into his 4 horsemen and then bring about the end of the world. So like as a GM, I think Apocalypse likes to tell big, sweeping, epic stories. Mm-hmm. But if you've been in more than one game run by him, you realize that he only ever tells the same story.
Oh, no.
Like same exact plot beats, same character archetypes. He just like changes some of the details to fit the system or the setting he's in. So that's my number 4. Bob, who is your number 5?
Well, I am going to spoil you for this one because mine is Apocalypse, and I clocked the min-maxer thing. I also thought this is going to be somebody who's visibly angry at your table if anyone chooses to fail a roll in a fun way. Like, that's not how this game is played, and if you do that, I will personally take you out back and kill you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He takes inefficiencies, like, deeply personally.
Yes. And also, I think, sees the plot hook and is engaging with it in kind of a metagame way, but is like, no, I'm doing this because I made the best character, and you, GM, will tremble before me. I also think you're going to get a weird situation where, even as a player, that maybe Apocalypse is trying to steer the game from that player seat, like topping from the bottom, which is going to make the table very weird. And
right.
Probably doesn't do a lot of relationship building because, like, no, I came here to get to level 20, the end. Why would I interact with you, the other players at this table, or any NPC? I would also guess that XP is managed with a level of thoroughness that's going to make the World Bank go, maybe we should be taking some ideas from this.
Yeah, I think we both got pretty much the same read as Apocalypse as a gamer. I think, I think we've objectively hit upon the right analysis there.
I have a question for you about him later on, but yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll save that for a later segment. For the time being, my number 5 is Juggernaut. So I think Juggernaut wants to be Apocalypse. He wants to show up with the most powerful, most wildly competent character. The difference is he's not quite smart enough to actually make that character.
Aww.
And he also always seems to forget that thanks to the dice, even the most competent character will still fail from time to time. And I don't think he takes failure especially well.
No.
You know, like he's used to being unstoppable in real life. And I feel like he's only happy when he feels like he's winning. And when he doesn't feel that way, I think he gets really cranky and sulky. If not like actual table flipping.
Oh, no.
I think as a GM, his dungeons are all just like one single hallway with a plain 10 by 10 room at either end.
Yes.
His NPCs are all one-dimensional, and you spend 95% of any given session just doing fights with monsters.
Okay.
Yep. So that's my take on him.
Are they interesting monsters?
They're probably like the biggest, most badass looking monsters he could find in the monster manual.
Okay.
So, for a certain value of interesting, probably.
Okay.
Bob, who is your number 6? Your second to last character?
Okay. This person is what I have heard referred to, I believe, as a murder hobo. Is that a term?
That is a term from D&D, yep.
I anticipate this person is very difficult to have at your table because no, we have to kill them. What if this bites us in the ass later? And then if the party is no, come on, just let them live. Then, and the GM uses them in any way, they're going to be outraged and feel like this was a personal betrayal. Also, I think has a combative relationship with the GM in a really weird way. Where it's oh, well, okay, you killed this, important person. Do you loot the body? That kind of thing. And they just go, they have nothing I need. Very intense look at the GM. You're oh God, okay. I think has a character backstory, big on vendettas, has not committed to that particular vendetta in any meaningful way. It's just anybody in their line of sight is now part of it, a passing vendetta. And I think you spend the campaign going, is this person going to turn on the party? No, they wouldn't turn on the party. Oh shit, they might actually turn on the party.
I'm going to guess Sabretooth?
Yay!
Bob, you're so good at this. You know these characters.
Well, he doesn't care. He's a scary man.
He certainly is. My number 6 is Mr. Sinister.
Okay.
So, as a player, I think that Sinister is similar to Apocalypse, but I actually think he's a bit better than Apocalypse in this regard. He definitely optimizes his characters to the point that they become wildly overpowered, but he actually puts some thought into who they are. When it comes to the actual role-playing, he will always have his character show up in every scene, even when you're playing multiple scenes that take place at the same, in the same period of time. His character will be in all of them, and will inevitably make himself the center of attention. Oof. As a GM, I think he's a nightmare, but kind of a beautiful nightmare.
Okay.
He will spend years planning out in meticulous detail the most agonizingly antagonistic storyline you've ever seen. You will never manage to outthink him because he's worked in contingencies for every possible choice you could make.
Oh no!
He's not railroading you precisely because, he's willing to allow you to walk whatever path you choose, but little do you know that he's already made sure that all of those paths lead you into absolute misery. So,
so mean.
He's not a nice person, Bob. I don't know if you picked up on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point during this campaign, he reveals that he had manipulated Gary Gygax in the 1970s into introducing some obscure rule into D&D in anticipation of this very moment when that rule comes up to screw you over in the most frustrating way imaginable.
Wow. Ugh. I don't care for him.
If you thought they were bad, wait till you hear our picks for the nadir. Bob, who is your number 7?
I'm describing this person as scary homebrew person. So has a lot of strong ideas about their character. None of these ideas make sense together. Has read the supplemental books and has thoughts, capital T, thoughts on them. Lines and veils, none. Often says things like, no, I think that terrifying murder demon made a good point. Maybe we should take that deal. And then, during combat encounters, might do things that make everybody at the table go, that was too far. You're weird. I'm uncomfortable now. And everybody's favorite sessions are the ones whenever they're sick and they can't make it.
Wow. Is that Mr. Sinister?
It is, yeah.
All right.
I just get such a vibe from him that he's no, I'll cross all the lines. And you're that's not the point of this game, sir. What are you doing?
Oh, he absolutely will. And speaking of someone who will cross all the lines, my number 7 is Sabretooth.
Oh, yes.
Sabretooth is the worst player I could possibly imagine. He's the type who always plays chaotic neutral.
Oh.
He murders shopkeepers and NPCs more or less at random because that's what my character would do.
Oh, no.
He will interrupt any sincere or heartfelt scene that another player is trying to have by having his character randomly appear and start making dick jokes. He definitely participates in pregame talk about, as you mentioned, lines and veils, about like triggering material that other players don't want in the game, specifically so that he knows what to do in the game. Like, and then he laughs at anyone who gets offended. He will make fun of anyone who confronts him about this behavior. He'll be like, "Oh man, you need to relax. It's just a stupid game." He has also never read any of the books. He knows none of the rules. And he probably misses important plot details because he was like looking at his phone or trying to start a side conversation with another player.
Oh my God, Dan. He's somebody's very shitty boyfriend or their shitty boyfriend's friend.
He's like that one friend from high school that you just can't get rid of regardless of how hard you try to jettison him.
Oh God, yes. No, this is terrible.
As a GM, I think he's a disaster. He's never prepared. Everything that happens, he obviously is just coming up with on the fly. Nothing makes sense or connects to anything on a story or thematic level, and he is wildly antagonistic to his players. His idea of a good night as a GM is having the players all die to a trap that they couldn't possibly have known about because he himself just came up with it seconds before springing it, and it would have been basically impossible in the actual world of the game. Like, he turns one of the players' beds at the inn into a pit trap all of a sudden, you know, shit like that.
Oh no. You said shit like that with such venom that I was like, Dan, do you know this person?
I've been around a lot of tables in my day, Bob.
Oh no. That's terrible. I'm sorry.
Anyway, let's wash that taste out of our mouths. Thankfully, that's as bad as things are going to get tonight, because we are now going to start moving back up the list, starting with your number 3. So, Bob, who is your number 3?
I think this person genuinely interested in the roleplay aspect, not has a character type that is like definitely towards the secretive end, but also they themselves are like, well, there's a lot that's happening here that's for me and it's not really for you. So does have a character backstory, doesn't really want to talk to anybody about it. Also has a playlist, is not going to bring that up. That's for them. Has saved the party more than once, but doesn't want to actually interact with the party. Like, there's a lot of monologuing and just kind of being alone. So is kind of that person who's like, no, my character is a lone wolf, but also part of this group, but is also the person absolutely most likely to write fanfic about their character, which is adorable.
Huh.
I could be very wrong about this.
Are you thinking of Magneto?
No.
Is it Mystique then?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I was between those two. Okay, you're emphasizing the secretiveness of Mystique.
I am, and also a person who, like, man, she's got a lot of shit in her life. She seems like a person who's like, I'm willing to do your fucking social thing, but like, I'm doing it on my terms, and I will be engaging with it on a personal level. And I am at the table, but I am not of the table.
Sure, I could see that. My number 3 is Emma Frost.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Emma would be pretty fun to play with. She's smart, she's funny. I think that if she's part of a story that engages her, she would bring a lot to the table. So I think she's good as a player, but I think she's even better as a GM. In the comics, she's led teams enough to make me think that she could like put together a good game and manage player expectations well. The only reason that I didn't put her higher is that I think as a player, she would tend to try to get her hooks into the GM in some way. Oof. And I think you were picking up on this when you talked about her.
Yeah.
But, like maybe she finds some blackmail. Maybe she's just kind of like working them subtly. But sooner or later, she manages to get some leverage over the GM, and all of a sudden, her character starts getting preferential treatment. So, all the good storylines, the best equipment. The monsters never attack her, all that sort of thing.
I mean, that's one way to play the game, I guess.
It is a way. You won't find it discussed in any of the rule books, but buddy, I've seen it.
Oof. You've played so many games. You've been at so many tables. You've seen, much of the kind of, I guess, biological diversity that dwells there.
The absolute petri dishes I have sat in as part of my gaming life. Anyway, all right, let's keep on moving up this list. Bob, who is your number 2?
I had Chris Newton help me with some terminology, and he gave me the term GM Emeritus.
Okay.
This person falls into the role that the story requires and does have a backup plan in case the party fails the role and is like, okay, well, now I know what to do. Often will manipulate the party, maybe with the party's knowledge, maybe not, but to try and follow the plot hooks that are set up. Has an extensive character backstory, will actually talk to you about it, and is also the person willing to go like, well, look, if my character has to die to like move the thing forward, or this is important to the kind of narrative we're doing, fine, I'm willing to do this. Has a tendency, I would say, to make thoughtful eye contact with the GM, which is kind of weird sometimes, but you're like, okay. I guess they're just feeling each other out. This is a dominance thing, but it's not like threatening. Will try to engage in role play with everybody and try to get everybody involved, which is adorable. Also has their character sheet memorized, but not just that, has everybody else's character sheet memorized. Very adorable, but not necessarily the greatest, but nice to have like, a parent to the party.
So that's gotta be Magneto.
Oh yeah, that's totally Magneto.
Yeah, okay. That was a pretty easy guess given the last 2 people that you haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, I have made it easy for you now.
Yeah, okay. All right, cool. No, I absolutely see that for Magneto, and I think you're going to see some of that echoed, but not right now, because my number 2 is Mystique.
Okay.
So I think as a GM, she'd be pretty great. Obviously, like, she can do a million voices. She can really bring the world of the game to life. I think she's like inherently kind of performative in that way. I think as a player, she's a bit less appealing, if only because by keeping her to playing just one character, you're kind of like limiting her greatest asset. So, I think she'd be a good player. It's just not really where she shines. My main worry with her is just she strikes me as being kind of flaky.
Oh.
So if she's not sufficiently enjoying the game, or like if something else kind of catches her interest that she's a little more interested in a given weekend, she'll just not show up. And you won't get a text, you won't get a phone call, you'll just get an empty seat.
Wow.
But when she shows up, I think she's good.
Huh. That is a calculated risk.
Yeah. All right, Bob. We've reached it. The zenith. Who is your number 1?
Okay, this was colored by multiple things that I heard from other people, but also I softened immediately. Okay, so obviously the only person I haven't said yet is Juggernaut. I will admit, every problem is the same problem as far as Juggernaut is concerned. But I also think maybe quietly terrified of being left out and like wants to really be part of this whole thing. And also that if you fuck with anybody he loves within the game, immediately committed to the plot hook. So on board, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. No, my honor for this person. I think does sometimes nice things for other people in the party. Like, well, you say, okay, well, you have downtime. What does your character do? He's like, oh, I'm going to craft an artifact because this other person, they have no stealth. So I'm going to give them a cool cloak or whatever. I think can't imagine why you would talk to an NPC, but the moment talks to an NPC is like, no, they're my best friend and they're part of the family now. We're bringing them with us, and has not told anybody, but has 100% commissioned fan art of the character.
Wow. Oh, that's a beautiful picture you've painted of Juggernaut.
I don't know how
I like that a lot.
It is, but it is the Juggernaut I wish to see in the world.
I mean, I think it's the Juggernaut we all wish to see in the world. So my number 1 is Magneto. And I think whether as a GM or a player, he's all about the role-playing part of a role-playing game. As a player, I feel like he'd really get into the world building. He'd make a character with a strong hook into the main themes of the story, and he'd come to the table every week with like new ideas about what his character is going to be up to. As a GM, we do know that Magneto loves coming up with these grandiose and detailed plans, but he's flexible enough to change them on the fly if he needs to. And unlike some of the other plan-loving supervillains on this list, like Apocalypse or Sinister, Magneto's actually like pretty compassionate and empathetic, so he's not going to be an adversarial GM. He's going to be on the player's side. I think he'd be really good to have at your table.
Oh, I mean, I have a big soft spot for him, but we can get into that.
Yeah. Well, let's not waste any time. We have some baggage here. I think we need to start unpacking some of it.
Hold on, I have to look at something really quick, because this is very important to me, and I don't know if I'm going to find it correctly, but I went looking on AO3, you will not be surprised to know, and I didn't read anything, but I was like, what does any of this mean? This makes no sense. What was the work in question? I don't remember. It was like Kane Marco and somebody, but now I can't find it, and I'm really bothered by this.
Was it Tom Cassidy?
Oh, you know what? It was not. Hold on. You've that's what I needed to search for, because this is a different thing. Okay. Was it by? Okay, I'm going to do this. AO3 has like the best system of finding stuff ever.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. All right. It's just very intricate, but it's better than like most libraries. Yes. Okay. There are 4 Black Tom Cassidy Kane Marco fics, and I was like, what does this mean?
I'm shocked that there's that few. Like I feel like if you're gonna ship the Juggernaut with anyone, that's the guy.
Ah, okay. There was also a really weird thing. I don't know if I can find it. This is a side thing that now I'm just asking you weird questions.
Uh-huh.
Okay. If I can find it.
Are we still in Let's Unpack That, or are we just kind of
No, I will get to Let's Unpack That. Okay.
Because I'm fine if this is Let's Unpack That. Like, we're playing Calvin Ball here.
I do have real Let's Unpack That. I will come back to this because this is a fucking weird sidebar that I just need to have, because I don't know what your answer is going to be, and it could be extraordinary.
Sure.
Okay, Dan. So, why would Apocalypse... Okay, Apocalypse has the hugest backstory of anybody. Do you think he doesn't care about anybody else's backstory? Or, like, he just seems like a person who's like, no, somebody's history has meaning. It's important. I've written a 10,000-word epic. You know, like, you're going to hear it.
I guess, like, you know, that's a fair point. When he tends to, like, you know, do his villainous monologues, they tend to be kind of sweeping and talk about, like, you know, the weight of millennia and, like, the future of mutant kind and all that sort of thing. So, you know, I feel like he has his grandiose ideas, but they're all kind of in service of this idea of mutants deserve to rule because they're the strongest, and he deserves to rule mutants because he's the strongest.
Okay.
And so I just feel like that's going to be the most, like, that's going to be the thing he puts the most amount of time and effort into. You know, like, I think he monologues in real life because he's actually thousands of years old and he actually has a giant backstory. But, like, I don't know that that's, like, what he would look for were he given the chance to, like, build a new character. You know, he would want to just make sure that his character was the strongest. Like, that's I feel like what his chief concern is.
So he's the kind of person at the table who every conversation with them is identical.
Yeah, it all kind of centers around the same theme. You know, it's like, it's always like, okay, Apocalypse, it's been a week. What has your character been doing? And it's always like, I've been training, I've been practicing. I've been lifting weights or studying my spell book or trying to find the latest artifact or whatever. It's never like, you know, oh yeah, I just decided to take the week off. You know, I took a visit out to the countryside. You know, I went and saw some, like a movie marathon, or, you know, just hung out with my friends. It's always the pursuit of perfection, whatever that looks like for the character that he's playing.
Okay.
So, okay, the character that, like, we had the biggest difference in terms of our reads on, obviously was Juggernaut.
Yes.
And you had... So I depicted Juggernaut as being a bit of a dummy, you know, a bit of like a stubborn kind of wrecking ball type. You saw him as, and I am 0% surprised by this, but I am interested in exploring it. You saw him as a big softy, very protective of his friends, very like into helping the people that he cares about. Where did you get that read from? Like, what is it that you've been looking into that led you into having that take on him?
Apparently, the only thing he cares about is being the strongest, other people who are strong, and then his friends. And that is it. Mm-hmm. Very short list. And so I was like, okay, well, if you are his friends in the part, like at the table, then I presume he would be invested and would be committed. And as a person who only has one mode, which is kind of like in or out, then if he's in, he's all in.
Right. You don't think he goes like, he's either 0% or 100%. He doesn't like, he doesn't have any people where he's like, oh yeah, that person's okay. Like,
I'm
he either
guessing
hates them or he loves them.
I mean, that's not, okay, I've seen very little of Juggernaut. I know very little about Juggernaut. But he seems like that's the point of Juggernaut, is to have it would be so weird to me to have Juggernaut and he's like, like I just kind of shoved them and I was like, that was it. Because I was like, I don't really hate you, but also you're in my way and I don't really like you. So, that like a mild Juggernaut story.
That's very funny to me because one of my favorite Juggernaut stories is one where, so basically Colossus has been being a shitty boyfriend to Kitty Pryde. And
rude.
So Wolverine and Nightcrawler take him out drinking to like try to get his head right. And they end up running into Juggernaut at a bar.
Yes.
And Colossus like gets all head up about it and is like, well, no, we have to fight this villain. And Juggernaut's like, I have no interest in fighting you right now. I just came to get a beer. And like the two of them end up destroying the bar because Colossus just won't leave it alone. So,
oh my God.
So like that's honestly, it kind of reminds me also of my favorite Juggernaut story, which is the one where he fights Spider-Man, because it's kind of a similar vibe now that I think about it. It's just like Juggernaut is just trying to leave town, but like right before he did this, he hurt this woman that was like a friend of Spider-Man's. And so like Spidey is pissed at him and is like trying everything he can to stop Juggernaut, but Juggernaut just like ignores him the whole time. So, you know, that's interesting that like you feel like he doesn't have a mode which is indifference. You feel like he's all love or all hate.
Well, no, not like, I mean, I don't know. We can't get into that like, well, you know, the true opposite of like love is indifference. Big eyebrows. Also, I don't know. Yeah, like that could be his version of just being off. Is like, all right, I'm either like in it or I'm not in it. But
right.
No, I see your point. I like this idea of Juggernaut who's just like casually involved. So do you think he wanted to be in the game or do you think he got roped into it then?
That's a very interesting question.
Yeah, who among this list wanted to do this and who was like, fine?
Okay, so you had a take on Juggernaut that I didn't, which is you feel like he starts off like not caring about an NPC, but like as soon as he kind of like has a conversation with them or learns about them, they're like his favorite character and he will like do anything for them.
Yes.
And to be quite honest, that does ring kind of true for me because there, when he had his major like heel face turn in the early 2000s, he had been infiltrating the X-Men. Like he was pretending that he had turned into a good guy so he could join the X-Men and like take them apart from the inside. But he ended up actually liking being an X-Man and genuinely became a superhero. So I think that there's something to that analysis. And I kind of feel like that's what would end up happening here is like Juggernaut was, you know, Magneto's bud or whatever. And Magneto was like, listen, Kane, we need an extra person for this game. Otherwise, like, we had someone drop out, and now, you know, Sebastian Shaw dropped out, and we need someone else to take his seat. And Juggernaut's like, no, man, I'm not going to do that. D&D's for nerds, whatever. And then he crushes a beer can on his head. But, like, yeah, I think, like, after a session or two, he is deeply into the game. And, yeah, I think that that's an accurate read. I really do.
Who else on this list do you feel like wanted to be part of it? Versus the people who are like, I feel like there's characters on here where you couldn't stop them from joining, even though you're like tried to keep the game a secret.
Yeah, I feel like Mystique is another one where I feel like she doesn't like commitment. And so she wouldn't necessarily want to be tied down to like a recurring weekly game. So I feel like, and I think I kind of mentioned this when I was talking about her, I feel like she's the kind of player who is really, really good when she's invested, but can kind of tend to flake out if she's not. So yeah, I feel like she's one where it would take some convincing. You know, you'd have to like sell her on the campaign before she's really willing to jump in. You know, you have to kind of draw it out of her.
Oh, okay.
I think Sabretooth doesn't care at all. Like,
he's
like Sabretooth, I think would be equally happy if like the same group of people were like, you know, watching a hockey game or like, you know, going on a hunting trip or something. Like, he doesn't give a shit. I think he's like legitimately there for the social aspect of it.
Well, that's kind of cute.
It is, but I think
for a given value.
I think he probably doesn't have the healthiest of relationships with his friends, but but I think that like, you know, as far as the social aspect, like he's in it for the social aspect. I think that he resents like needing to pay attention to what other people are doing and having to do a lot of math. So
okay, I feel a kinship with Sabretooth all of a sudden.
Yeah, for sure. For the first time,
Mr. Sinister scares the shit out of me and seems like such a, like the person who wants to be at the table, but specifically wants to be at the table to be toxic.
I definitely feel like he wants to be at the table so that he can show off, you know, so that like everyone can see how smart he is and like how good he is at playing either his character or all the characters and like how intricate his plans are. You know, like he's very much about like doing a game more as a means of self-expression than as a means of like engaging with other people in the world, you know?
How butthurt does he get if you do not show a certain amount of like awe at whatever he's up to? Like the level of whatever bullshit he's putting out.
Oh, deeply butthurt. But he expresses it as like, I can't believe you're such a fool that you aren't immediately jumping at this thing that I am offering you. You know, like that's how he frames it.
Yeesh. I mean, I read like a 15 scariest things about Mr. Sinister and was like, oh, he's terrifying. I don't like him anymore.
I'm interested now because he's done some messed up shit. But but I think that like, depending on where this person was drawing from, like, Mr. Sinister is always a bastard, but in the last, like, 10 years or so, he's become kind of a fun bastard. Like, very camp.
Oh, okay, all right, good. He should be. He's a fucking weird vampire man.
Yeah. He's... in the last, like, probably 3 or 4 years, he's developed this weird obsession with capes. Well, which is to say, like, I feel like you look at him and you understand that this man has an obsession with capes, but like he's developed a spoken obsession with capes, where he'll like outwardly kind of critique people's cape choices.
Oh my god, that's cute. Okay, I read about like all of his fucked up loving experiments. I mean, working with the Nazis, but I know that's like a common thing for villains to do in Marvel and DC. It's like, how do you show somebody's awful? They're like, oh, I know, they'll be collaborators. And you're like, okay, fine. Yep. He also did a lot of, well, I guess he like really enjoyed the experiments, which I'm like, gross, and causing people pain in a very like overt way, which is different to me than just like waving your hand and just like causing mass destruction. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he looks so weirdly hot, and I was mad about it.
Yeah, he's a vampire man. I like.
I know. He's got kind of a Hordak face, which is unfortunate.
He has a Hordak face, but like without all the weird shit on it. Just just kind of smoothed out a bit.
Just a little bit of a buffer.
That's it. He's like the gateway drug into fucking Hordak. Like you do Mr. Sinister first. And then afterwards, you're like, well, I need something harder than this. Where's that dude from She-Ra?
Oh man,
it's funny when you were going over your description of Emma Frost. I said there were two people that I felt like it could be. The other character I felt like it could be is Mr. Sinister, because really? You were describing how Emma like always goes into painstaking detail about what her character is wearing, and I was like, oh yeah, Mr. Sinister would absolutely do that too. Like. I feel like the two of them have notebooks full of their characters in a million different outfits. Whereas, like, I feel like Magneto, his notebook is full of, like, him drawing his character, or just, like, not even his character some of the time. He just draws, like, moments from the campaign that really stuck with him, or like moments that he's imagining happening behind the scenes that he just can't get out of his head. I feel like he just like he gets so into the story and into like the characters and who they are and like what drives them. I think that's sort of like what he really thinks about a lot.
Magneto's very special. Like he's so important. I mean, he's bad, but he's also so good.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Okay, do Emma Frost and Mr. Sinister hate each other, or do they get along?
It kind of depends on when... It depends on, like, when in the timeline you're talking about. I would say they almost always hate each other.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there's a certain... So, like, right now, they're both on the ruling council of the Mutant Nation.
Okay.
In fact, I think most of the people on this list are. About half of the people on this list are. But, and so they snipe at each other all the time.
But they're probably fucking. Come on, they have to be then.
Ooh, you present an interesting read on the situation.
The hatest hate fuck. Because that is fucking somebody who has your gimmick. How dare they?
Bob, I think you might be right. I think that is a completely accurate read. Because the thing is that, like, they hate each other, but, like, they also respect each other a lot. And I feel like that's the perfect alchemy for what you're describing. Yeah, there was this event relatively recently called the Hellfire Gala, where, like, all the mutants, like, held this big old party, and Emma Frost had 3 distinct costume changes during it. And I feel like by the end of it, she would have been so high, because she was the one who arranged it. And I feel like she would be so high on this exact thing that is exactly what she wanted and is exactly her shit, that if she got tipsy and ran into Mr. Sinister, wow. Yeah, I think that's exactly what would happen. She'd be like, and now I'm going to conquer you as the final show of my power on this night, which is dedicated to me specifically.
I love her so much. I love her for that she just is all about herself in this unapologetic way. And that is so delicious.
Yeah, Emma Frost is like probably my 3rd favorite X-Men character, and that is a very crowded list. Like, that is a top-heavy list.
Oh man, you have given me such beautiful catnip. I mean, nobody is going to write this story, and I am not the person to write it, but I can have this tiny tidbit of it, and it is delicious.
Yeah. It exists now in our head and in the heads of all of our listeners.
Yeah. Oh God, Mr. Sinister deserves to get his shit wrecked. Like, yeah, leave him broken, Emma.
Oh, buddy, break him harder, please. He deserves it. So let me ask you this, Bob. If you were sitting down with these people to do an RPG, who would you want to GM, and what game would you want them to run?
Boo. Okay. I think... Okay, so given who I am, I think Magneto will be the most on board with my shit, which is to say tolerant.
Yeah.
And that's very
totally
important whenever it comes to GMing with me. I am not that chaotic, but I am chaotic in a specific way that I can see as like, I don't know the extent to which I pull focus, but certainly I'll be like, well, but I want to go smell this flower. Will you let me go smell this flower? And I will ask that every scene about a different thing. And so I can see the extent to which you need a GM who is either on board with that or has the kindest way of diverting my attention.
It's interesting because RPGs can so often be like means of escapism for people who play it. And I feel like so much of Magneto's life has been like high stakes, high stress situations that like, honestly, if he was given the chance to just kind of like dick around and like do something that had no importance whatsoever and was just kind of like weird and silly and fun, I think he would kind of go for it. Like, I think you'd kind of have to sell him on it a bit, like get him to kind of relax, but I don't think he'd fight you that much on it.
Do you think he'd play the Trash Pandas game with me?
Ooh. I mean,
would he be a fat chonk raccoon?
I feel like he would associate with their plight, you know?
Aww.
Like, they're looked down upon by humans as garbage and as vermin, but they have to use their abilities and their talents and their cleverness in order to get what is being denied to them. I feel like that's the perfect Magneto game.
Oh no, but then it's just going to be all shop talk again.
You're right.
How do you get away from that with him? It has to be a game where everything is like fine all the time. So, God, I mean, I've played so few games, but Stew Pod is the only game where you're like, okay, everything is fine. All problems are basically, how do you get the floor clean?
Stew Pod is a good choice too, because it's a game about having struggled, but finally being able to lay your burden down.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea too. Bob, you are, for someone who both has not like interacted with X-Men stuff a lot and also doesn't do a lot of gaming, I think you're kind of nailing this.
I just like characters a lot. I like them. They're so lovely. And I especially have a soft spot for the characters who, if given the opportunity, would make a softer, gentler choice because that's what their soul calls them to. Because they're like, I need this. And
yeah.
I want it. You know, he would be lovely. I would play that with him.
Yeah.
What about you? What games would you play?
Yeah, I think Magneto's my choice for GM. I just think that he has like kind of the best skill set and personality for it.
Yeah, he won't flake mid-campaign like Mystique.
Yeah. I kind of want to give him the chance to build up like kind of a big historical epic, because I feel like that's kind of like, I feel like that's what would get him kind of the most like fired up and passionate. Like I think that if he was given the opportunity to tell that sort of story, he would like really sink his teeth into it, you know? Like that would, he'd come to the table every week looking like really engaged and really excited, and he'd be like texting us about it through the week being like, oh man, you guys, I cannot wait for this game, you know, that sort of thing. So something that's like, that's just like really sweeping. I would love for him to run a Star Wars game.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Getting to like fight back against a big evil empire, you know, like a plucky rebellion sort of thing in like, this big space epic. I think that would be great. Yeah, I would love to be in a Star Wars game that Magneto ran.
Now I need this. I want this. Magneto, if you're listening, please start an actual play.
Oh, please. First of all, if you're listening, big fan. But yes, please.
No, I caution, asterisk, not a big fan of everything you've done, but big fan of much of your work.
True. Largely a fan. A fan of many things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's very important.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay. Sidebar. The only reason I watched any of the X-Men films, and I watched all of them, was because everybody on Tumblr was shipping Charles and Eric. And I was like, well, I want in.
Oh, it is irresistible.
Such a good decision.
So you knew that this thing had both Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, but they in and of themselves were not sufficient to draw you in. You had to be told that you might have smoochy feelings about them before you decided to take the plunge. Okay,
yes.
all right.
I mean, like, people being talented at me, there's Oscar winners, Dan. That's not enough to lure me. Like, it could be sad and terrible, or it could just be fucking boring fight scenes, which I don't care about. I like a fight scene if it's doing something, but so rarely. Movies, big superhero movies are so hit and miss about whether or not a fight scene is actually doing something character driven.
Oh,
and
yeah, for sure.
I'm like, I'm not here for spectacle. If I wanted to watch that, like, I'll just go watch an episode of Reboot. Like, if I just want to see something, I'm like, no, that's weird and fun. So, I needed to know, am I going to have feelings about this that fanfic will resolve for me? Because also, I don't want to be done with a thing whenever I'm done with it. And knowing that there's fanfic about it means, oh, I get to eat this delicious meal and then I get leftovers, but the leftovers are slightly different every time.
That's so interesting to me. So you actively seek out an incomplete experience from your media.
Yeah. I mean, if it's complete on screen, I'll take that too. Like, I watch Bridgerton and I love Bridgerton, and that's like a complete, I don't need fanfic of that. The story is done.
Uh-huh. So really the type of media that you avoid then is one where you feel like the characters have no chemistry and there's nothing there. There's no like interesting stories to be told either implicitly or explicitly with them. Is that that's the shape of it?
Pretty accurate. Mm-hmm. I can do a story. I can do a story that is beautiful and interesting on its own, but it has to be doing something extremely specific for me that is complete on its own terms, but a lot of those tend to be romances as well. Like, I didn't need to read fanfic of The Shape of Water. I didn't need to read fanfic of Crimson Peak. I mean, I did, but I was like, oh, I don't really need this.
Yeah. But again, those are like
romances,
movies
basically,
where the characters have a lot of chemistry.
Yeah,
right?
and there's a lot of like emotional stakes. I'm trying to. I don't watch a lot of movies. I watched Torque.
Oh, I know. I
didn't watch Torque and go like, I need to have fanfic of this, I guess.
Sure. If I can say, by the way, I think us watching Torque was like maybe my favorite thing that we did when we were on vacation. But anyway,
it was fucking gold. That experience, and because I was like, is Dan going to get into this? Because I know you like good stuff. You also like bad stuff, but you enjoy good stuff, I would say, much more than I do. And so I was sort of like watching you out of the corner of my fucking eye. And then whenever you finally were like, yes, and the stupidest thing fucking happened, I was like, yeah, Dan is here with me in the pit. Like going, yes, this garbage.
I will say we watched Torque under the best possible circumstances for me, which is to say with a bunch of friends, having some really good food, and also like drinking relatively strong cocktails.
Yes.
Like, if any of those things had been a little different, Torque might not have hit. Like, if I'd been watching it by myself, I would not have enjoyed myself half as much. But as a social experience with friends of mine, I was totally down for it.
Also, hands down, the best experience for watching Mortal Kombat. I was like, I have such strong feelings about fucking Mortal Kombat because of that, even though, Dan, I cannot remember half of those characters' backstories.
You don't need to. That's not what you come to Mortal Kombat for.
All of my brain is taken up with Christopher Lambert's fucking twinkle. That's it. That's everything. I just remember that, and I'm like, well, obviously you fuck him. Clearly. He has a twinkle. I don't know what that twinkle portends, but probably something.
So, Bob, what did we learn today?
I learned that Smash Fiction trained me so much better than I remembered. I was able to pull it together from bare bits and pieces. Dan, I'm going to do a muscle flex here. Flex.
Yeah.
I did not even watch a YouTube-like overview of any of these characters.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very proud of myself. And I was like, Smash Fiction, you trained me to glean little tidbits enough to go, yeah, this is kind of cogent. It mostly makes sense. So pleased with my training.
Man, I am very proud of you and realize I kind of did you a disservice because I could have very easily pointed you towards a YouTube video that explains all these characters. But you know what? You didn't need it. You pulled yourself up by your own bootstraps.
I did. And also, I appreciated that I got to have an experience where I would be poking at various people. I poked at Hub, I poked at Chris, I poked at you a little bit as well. And everybody had to sort of go, well, I don't want to color your view. I am going to say these things as neutrally as possible and just see what happens. And so I'm like, oh, now we're all involved in the experiment. Yay.
Well, you know what? I would never describe myself as like the foremost expert either in X-Men villains or in role-playing games, but I have a fair amount of experience with both.
Yeah.
And our picks were extremely close. So I feel like you did a good job. Yeah. At the very least, you entered into a realm of expertise that you maybe didn't have a week ago. And that's impressive.
True. Thank you. What did you learn?
I think I learned I've been selling Juggernaut a little bit short in terms of, him as a bit of a softie. I kind of still have the image of him in my head as, the kind of single-minded brick of a dude who just kind of smashes stuff. But, you reminded me of stories that I myself have kind of forgotten about. And, I'd be happy to have him at my table. Would I be convinced that he wouldn't smash the table if he rolled a natural one? No. But you'd always buy a new table, Can't get a new friend. And I think Juggernaut would be a good friend to have.
Oh. He's a nice.
He is a nice. And so are you, Bob. Thank you for doing this with me. We were... I would say cautiously excited about doing this, and I think I'm rather pleased with the way it turned out.
Yeah, no, me too. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, and thank you also, listeners, for joining us for this episode of Soft Choices, what I hope will be the first of many. I would love to hear you come on and analyze other characters in other mundane situations with other hosts and friends of yours.
I cannot get enough of a mundane. My favorite kind of fanfic is mundane. That's the best.
Absolutely. I know you love a good coffee shop AU.
God, even more than that, household chores. Household chores fanfics.
Oh, I guarantee you we're going to have a household chores episode of Soft Choices at some point down the road. That'll come at some point. In regular Hard Choices episodes, we end by saying stay hard. But I'd like to think, every once in a while, it's good to consider being soft as well.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.